4 years ago, in an interview with Graham Bessinger, Novak Djokovic was asked what his biggest weakness was. And Novak Djokovic paused, repeated the question. You can tell that he was ready to give a very meaningful and thoughtful answer. And he replied with the following: my biggest strength and weakness at the same time is the ability to comprehend things at a deeper level. And this is a truly profound statement that's somewhat cryptic, but you can read into this in several different ways. See, the game of tennis constantly puts obstacles in your way, and it's up to you to basically problem solve. And there's no question that no other player in history has been able to problem solve as well as Djokovic. Tennis is a game of failures. You are constantly missing shots, losing points, and losing matches. So overcoming these obstacles is what the game of tennis is all about at the mental level. So I love this answer from Djokovic, and out of curiosity, I opened up the comments section, and what I saw there was, nah bro, your overhead is your biggest weakness. So it is no secret that Novak Djokovic has some issues with his overhead. After all, it's called the Djoko smash. And Boris Becker, his former coach, said that Djokovic has the weakest smash in the top 100. So before I get into Djokovic's overhead problems, let's first talk about what a sound overhead technique is. So the overhead swing is very similar to the serve, but it's not exactly like the serve because we're not tossing the ball to ourselves. We have to track the ball that's coming from the other side. So footwork is going to be crucial. Generally at the high level, players get quality lobs and they actually have to move backwards to hit the overhead, and generally they're going to be jumping off the back leg and landing on the front leg to hit the overhead. The goal is to make contact in front of your head on the overhead. You don't want to make contact behind your head. You also want to make contact slightly to your right. You are not going to be able to bend your body like you are on the serve and make contact at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock. It is crucial that your body is somewhat upright and that you make contact around 1 o'clock. Other than that, the swing is going to be very similar to a serve. The trajectory is going to be different, so it's going to be more of a downward motion, and there is an option to put slice on the overhead. You'll see this more on a bouncing overhead, not so much on an overhead that's taken out of the air. And it is absolutely impossible to do any type of kick when it comes to the overhead because you would have to make contact on the left side of your head, and this is something that's very difficult to do out of the air. And it makes no sense in the context of what you're trying to do with the overhead, which is slam the ball down into the ground and make it bounce very high up so that the other person can't reach it. So Djokovic obviously has all the fundamentals on the overhead. He does have a deep racket drop. He does have a torso rotation. He does make contact in front of his head. He does finish the overhead properly, and he generally does have good footwork on the overhead. So this is evident on the overheads that Djokovic makes. However, on the overheads that Djokovic misses, you are going to see some fundamental flaws. And the biggest problem that Djokovic has is commitment to the shot. Because like Becker said, it's in his head. There is a lack of trust. So what I mean by lack of commitment is that when Djokovic hits the overhead, he doesn't fully commit to it. You will often see that post the moment of contact, the upper body will be completely straight and it's just the arm swinging downwards. So the body is not really helping him out. The body is not accommodating the swing path. In addition to that, and this is hard to believe, Djokovic sometimes has poor footwork on the overhead. He just simply does not move his feet. So Djokovic is one of the best movers in the history of tennis. However, on the overhead, he's often flat-footed. He doesn't move enough. As Becker said, he jumps when he really doesn't have to jump. And this is something that you want to remember. It's completely unnecessary to jump on the overhead unless the ball is going behind you with pretty good penetration. Then you're going to jump off your back foot and land on the front foot. However, if you're more in a stationary position, it makes absolutely no sense to jump. So it's either Djokovic doesn't move his feet enough or that he jumps when he doesn't have to and loses his balance. So what ends up happening is that he often makes contact at very awkward places. He will make contact behind his head. He will make contact way too far to the left. And he does make a lot of overhead mistakes. And what's so frustrating for Djokovic, and where I think this all stems from is that he misses extremely easy overhead. So even when he's very close to the net, the entire court is open, he will miss a very easy overhead. Whether he's spraying it long or into the net. So when that happens to you at crucial moments in a match, it's very similar to a second serve issue where you lose confidence, you're going to lose trust in the shot. And what ends up happening is when you lose trust, you're not going to have the same commitment that you have when you do have confidence. And when you don't have the commitment to actually hit the shot, you're being careful with it, you're going to start missing it. And it's going to be especially evident in crucial moments of the match. So it's unlikely that Djokovic is going to miss an overhead 1-all in the first set, but there is a small chance that Djokovic is going to miss an overhead when it's 4-all, 30-all in the fifth set. Now, how do you fix a problem like that? Well, if you listen to Becker's statements about Djokovic's overhead, they really tried. They hit a tremendous amount of overheads in practice. And the frustrating thing is that Djokovic does have a fundamentally sound overhead, and he's one of the best athletes that we've ever seen on the tennis court. So it's all about starting to make these overheads in matches. As he continues to miss overheads here and there, this will stay in his head. So it's basically having the trust to go for it in very crucial situations in the match. And it's easy to say that standing here. It's another thing trying to execute that on the match court. Does the fact that Djokovic misses some overheads here and there have an effect on his results? In other words, could he have won more Grand Slams if he had a better overhead? Not at all. First of all, Djokovic is a baseline player. He has improved his net game tremendously. If you watch Djokovic volleying in 2023, for example, the tournament in Cincinnati, or even in the US Open final against Medvedev, Djokovic is volleying a lot better. And in my opinion, the overhead has improved. So I think that Djokovic used to miss more overheads than he does now. But if you remember what I started my video with, Djokovic is one of the greatest of all time at problem solving. So even though Djokovic might miss an overhead at 4-all, 30-all in the fifth set, he is so good at processing that mistake and playing his best tennis on the next point that I don't think that missing overheads has any effect on his results. After all, he's breaking all the records and he won every single tournament that you can win.